July 12, 2023. Good day all. This is a message from Sierra Victor. We are busy looking at the basic principles of warfare and how to protect a society against a threat. Irrespective of age or century of the conflict, whoever participates, or the level of technology involved, certain principles stay the same. We have looked at internal principles dealing broadly with human capital, movable and stationary assets as well as logistics. The aim is not to provide you with a full comprehensive plan for your area. Firstly, it is quite impossible as we are not familiar with the specific demographic, geological terrain or level of structural development in your town or city. Our messages should only trigger you to start thinking for yourself and to provide you with guidance. Let's look at external principles, Part 1. That is principles to follow when meeting and dealing with the threat. Karl von Clausewitz. The principles of war identified by Karl von Clausewitz in his essay Principles of War, and later enlarged in his book, On War have been influential in military thinking in the North Atlantic region. The initial essay dealt with the tactics of combat, and suggested the following general principles. Discover how we may gain a preponderance of physical forces and material advantages at the decisive point. To calculate moral factors. Make the best use of the few means at our disposal. Never lack calmness and firmness. Without this firm resolution, no great results can be achieved in the most successful war. Always have the choice between the most audacious and the most careful solution. No military leader has ever become great without audacity. Clausewitz also included in the essay general principles of strategy by saying that warfare has three main objects. To conquer and destroy the armed power of the enemy, always direct our principal operation against the main body of the enemy army or at least against an important portion of his forces. To take possession of his material and other sources of strength, and to direct our operations against the places where most of these resources are concentrated. To gain public opinion, won through great victories and the occupation of the enemy's capital. From just the above, and from factually all other great military thinkers, it is clear that conflict is not passive. If this threat of a white genocide, or an uncontrolled revolution realizes, we'll have to change the way we think. We at Sierra Victor have never used scare tactics to create panic, become popular on social media, cash in with membership fees or become sensational. We have no ambition to fame, glory or riches, but we try to be the voice of reason, and that voice says that you must also change your way of thinking. If you're going to be scared and a victim, you won't survive. The main most important principles to keep in mind, from which all other flow, is the following. Objective. Initiative. Mobility. Sustainability. Communication. The objective. The overall objective would be to preserve life, protect property and stabilize the situation by restoring law and order into responsible and mature hands during the conflict. When bugging out, only the first of these might be met. When bugging in, all three would be achievable. Smaller objectives will be identified, planned, and executed in support of the main objective. Initiative. Initiative is when you decide the situation and the terrain. You hold the power to decide what happens and where it happens. Initiative includes elements like surprise, for instance. If you have and hold initiative, you can and should use every situation to your advantage. Once again, like we said so many times, the battle starts in your mind. If you see 10,000 enemies storming your neighborhood, you have two options. To retreat and flee, or to lead them into an ambush. Mobility. Mobility is of utmost importance, that is why it is crucial to identify and protect modes of transport and fuel. In the same effort you should deny the enemy access to these. The anticipated threat will use normal soft-shell non-4x4 vehicles as main transport to and from a conflict zone. Take advantage of this and prohibit their mobility with barricades, trenches, etc. Sustainability. Ensure that you identify a safe area on these criteria. Forget about sentiment for a moment. Yes, You did work hard to afford a house, maybe you have stayed there for 10 years or more and you have a lot of good memories in your house. If your house is in an unfavorable neighborhood, you might consider a bunny hop to a more favorable area. Bunny hop is moving or relocating between 50 and 100 kilometers from where you reside. It is still close enough for you still know much of the area, and it is close enough to do day trips back to your house to go and collect logistics you left behind in the initial bunny hop. When identifying a safe area, there are some criteria to keep in mind and use as guidelines. An area with like-minded people. An area with as much as possible logistics. A defendable area. The first of the two criteria is self-explanatory, the third needs some further guidelines. When is an area defendable and what makes it defendable? It is located in a geographically defendable terrain, surrounded or bordered by mountains, hills, rivers, dams or lakes, open terrain etc. It has as few as possible access routes. It has high ground for observational purposes. Communication. Communication is key to any successful defense. Communication is necessary between observation teams, reaction teams, base units, and the area defense control room. Communication to the SAPs or SANF is also vital as mutual support can be rendered. Communication to adjacent safe areas can facilitate strategic cooperation and the exchange of logistics. It is an assumption that the cell phone networks might not work as now. For communication purposes, radio communications should be considered. In our next message we will continue with external principles, part 2. Thank you for listening or reading this message. Please feel free to use and distribute as needed. Our messages are not by any means enticing you to a revolution of sorts, but rather to equip you with the necessary theoretical background in order to assist local armed forces or police in stabilizing a SHTF situation. Please contact any admin on any Sierra Victor group for our previous material or search for our channel on YouTube. We wish you well. Sierra Victor.